Welcome back to the LEC. Misfits for Gaming goes 2-0 for the first time in the 2022 LEC Spring. Congratulations on the victory, Neon. How are you feeling about the victory and defeating the previously dominant Rogue?
Thank you, Ashley. Yeah, obviously I'm feeling pretty good. And yeah, I mean, beating Rogue to me is kind of like beating any other team, but just like a bit better, right? Because they're previously undefeated, so.
Still, Rogue before yesterday's game looked was going undefeated so far. Does Astralis' upset yesterday give Misfits a mental boost in any way?
Not really, but we were kind of like, well, it probably threw them off a little bit, right? Like you start to question yourself a little if you lose to a 0-9 team while being 9-0 yourself. So yeah, we knew that they wouldn't be like at their peak, I would say.
And speaking of today's game, you played Jinx against the Lucian Nami bot from Rogue. What do you think about Lucian Nami as a champion duo? Because it's like a composition that we don't see as often in 2022.
Yeah, so I think this duo is pretty good, but whenever I want to play it, my team just like tells me to shut up, so I don't really get to play it, but I think it's pretty good. Although Lulu lanes are probably like the best answer into it, and last week they banned Lulu and they played Lucian Nami, and I thought that was pretty good by them, but this week they chose to not ban Lulu, so I was like, hell yeah, let's play this, and yeah, we just like had a counter, you know, so it's not that strong, I think.
And Lulu was a great partner indeed for Jinx, and you also, for your performance on Jinx, you get the Key Player of the Game. Can you tell me more about the contribution Jinx for Misfits Gaming, especially being able to carry towards the late game?
You mean Jinx in this comp?
Yeah.
Well, I mean, it was pretty much just like we knew that they really like Jinx, and so do we, so we just take it. And I mean, this game, like, if you play lane well, I'm basically winning my lane, and I'm also outscaling everyone into the late game, and that kind of happened as well. So yeah, I was basically strong at all points in the game. Like, I just had to respect the Ryze windows they had on us, and if you can do that, then I think the game is easy.
That sounds really great. And one last question, Neo. What is the one thing that Misfits Gaming need to do for the second round and the rest of the 2023 in order to make it to the playoffs or even make a deeper run in the playoffs?
Well, we just need to stay like level-headed, you know, because sure, we might have had like a 2-0 week and we were looking pretty good right now, but that can all change within a week. So like, if anything, just keep working hard and like keep doing whatever we're doing, because it seems to be working so far.
Thank you. It does seem to be working for Misfits Gaming, and we'll continue to keep our eyes on this thing. Thank you so much, and I'll take it over to Sjokz, Caedrel, and Drakos for the post-match of this Misfits victory.
Thank you very much for that, Ashley. Wonderful to hear from Neon. And this is the first time that Misfits actually broke the 1-1 course, I believe. Previously, they were always going 1-1. Now they're able to string 2 of those wins together and against Rogue, who, by the way, have now gone 0-2, but I'd like to focus on the positive a little bit first, in that when we've talked about the Misfits previously, we've talked a lot about, hey, is Herod finding his form? Is Zlatan a bit more proactive in the early game? Neon quietly, together with Mersa in that bot lane, have been putting up great performances, and I think when you look at the arc that Neon has gone through in his career so far, and also in the LEC, that's to be expected, but it's really coming out now.
Yeah, normally when you think of Misfits as well, it's Vito as the primary carry. This time he's on something a lot less flashy, and it's the bot lane who actually carries. Rogue did their bread and butter. They went mid, they got a kill for Larssen. They did dive VTO, put the Orianna behind, and Larssen was trying to roam around the map, but as Neon said in an interview with Ashley, he just had to respect the Ryze roaming timers, and even then he was still pulling out kills at numbers disadvantages in the bot lane.
And of course, it doesn't hurt that it was also just an incredibly flashy performance. A lot of cross-map rockets, a lot of highlight team fights.
Yeah.
And he was set up for success. You're against a Ryze, you're against a Lucian, both relatively short range, as long as you're not tanking any crazy skills from an Ornn, as long as your flash is up and available, as it was in this fight. It's pretty easy for him to play out once he gets that lead, but getting that lead was still impressive.
And I will say, as you go to these dragon fights, Misfits got the early dragons because of the bot push and the bot lead, right? But when it came to the 3rd, 4th, 5th dragon that actually did happen in the Baron fights, felt like Rogue used their tools quite early on. The Ornn ult was used early on, the Nami ult was used early on, and when it actually came to the fight on that final fight there, they don't have any ultimates left. They still have the Shockwave on the side of Misfits, they still have the Jinx Rocket, all these good things, but felt like Rogue were trying to find engages, but Misfits just disengaged, restarted the fight, and they had no ultimates left.
And I think, to be fair, Larssen still had some solid performances across this in those team fights, but this composition is just so hard to play when you fall behind against the Jinx. Because again, short-range Lucian, short-range Ryze, you want the long-range Ornn engages, and they kind of had to fish for it, but if it whiffed, they didn't have any recourse. They didn't have any backup options. They just had to take shots when they got them, and ultimately, I feel like the second that early game fell apart, as long as Misfits didn't throw, it was just in their court the entire game.
Yeah, I think in this game specifically, also because of the nature of the comp of Misfits and that Jinx and those scaling abilities, that was always going to be hard for Rogue. But what I do find interesting is when you look across all their games, they only ever had to come back from one deficit, and that was when they played versus Mad in the first round robin, and they successfully did that. But they have not been tested in that regard. They have not been put behind early because they was previously so enormously ahead usually. So this is interesting, seeing how teams who are able to put a better early game plan together fare.
Yeah, and it looks like Rogue kind of collapsed in the early game. They had an Ornn top, kind of weak side. You can play for the Ornn, but playing for tanks is never good because resource on a tank doesn't win you the game. It just gets more tanky. Of course, it's better to play for your winning lanes, but the Lucian Nami faulted in the first 4 or 5 levels of the lane. The early bot dive from Misfits was fantastic. So then where's your strong side? It's Larssen. So Larsen's trying to juggle these lanes where top's been counterpicked, bot's losing. It's too much for him to handle, like Drakos said, on a short-range champ.
Yeah, and similarly, uncharacteristic underperformance from comp. I think you heard it highlighted from Neon already. Having the Lulu lane does set Misfits up for success, but still some sloppy mistakes, some sloppy play, and it's definitely not a week that Rogue are going to look back and be happy about. The good news is they have things to improve on. The only thing they've really lost in the grand scheme of things is a little bit of faith and a potential 18-0, but they still have a lot of time to go back to the drawing board with the sheer amount of wins that they've built
It's going to be really difficult for them to fall out of playoffs contention even if they lose every single game. Maybe that prediction of the 9-9, like the
oh God, can you
Astralis
imagine?
and Rogue will come true. Regardless, though, I think when you look at the 0-2 week, for me, it was two very different things. I think trying the Ahri out didn't really work out that much. It wasn't a Larssen issue, just like, hey, that's a team strat issue overall. And then today, getting boinked out a little bit, in the early game, and not having any lanes to necessarily play towards, and then there was just too much for Larssen to do, so yeah.
I think if you look back on it, the Lucian Nami lane is always going to be a little bit volatile. If it gets ahead, I think I agree completely. I hate that, and I hate Aurelia. Just going to put that out there right now. Both those champions feel like absolute traps to me, but it can be really successful as it gets ahead. When it falls behind, it's really hard to play the game. It's a similar story for Ahri. When she's not able to be impacted early, when she gets camped, when she gets shut down, these champions just aren't going to do a lot. So Rogue did not set themselves up with drafts that, if they fell behind, really had great tools to come back. But I wouldn't fault them for that. I don't think it's like every draft has to have a backup insurance plan, but you do have to play better and cleaner in the early game if you are going to draft these more, let's say, volatile champions.
I'm just going to throw it out there. Sorry, I'm just going to throw it out there. I think that if you have such a great lead in the standings for the side of Rogue, I'd love to see them invest heavily into a carry top lane performers for Odoamne and play towards them as an alternative to, we'll try and do something in the mid lane differently. But that's just my own 2 cents. I don't think it's a man overboard.
Oh, no, definitely. But if we look at the actual standings itself, Misfits are tied with wins with G2 and Fnatic. If one of them lose, of course, then they will be tied for 3rd place. Right now, they're in 4th place, which I don't think anyone expected when you bring in a rookie support, a rookie jungle, and you take Neon, who had a very kind of struggling split on Schalke last year. Put those 3 players together alongside your star solo laners, boom. 4th place team, so much success coming out of this roster already.
And we did talk earlier about the Misfits top side because that's where we spent the entirety, almost of last year, looking. But the fact that they now have a bottom lane that's more than just sturdy, that can actually show up and carry games, I think is massive. Mersa's solid mechanical moments, interrupting the Lee Sin queue. Neon has been clutch in a lot of games. I remember aggressive flash forwards on Jhin. He did sort of grief the G2 base race where Flakked got the Quadra, but the fact that he's playing high risk in big moments, frankly, I like it. I like that they have an AD carry who's willing to put himself in high risk positions, willing to take those risks upon himself and potentially carry games.
Yeah, and speaking of that base race, if Misfits beat G2, they'd be in 2nd place right now. So there's another world where they end that game. They do actually clear out the Nexus in a kind of like a good mechanical fashion without overextending, and we're looking at Misfits in 2nd place right now.
But they're in 3rd, and I think that's really good as well. They also have 3 wins in a row right now, so really good stuff, I think, across the board for Misfits. And for Rogue, we'll see what they come up with next week after a little bit of a haphazard week 5. Now, Astralis, they are looking for another upset victory after beating Rogue yesterday as they take on G2 Esports in the next game. Vedi are standing by. I talk for a living.
It's like the first pick ban in week 5 or something,
They're so
right?
close.
Is it the first week 5?
Hello? Is it there? Where is it? Oh.
It's there.
It's on that wall.
Welcome
Anyway.
to the second week 5.
Yeah, this is the second week 5.
This is the second half of the day, which therefore makes it the second
As
week
opposed
5.
to game 3, which is
the first week 5.
Well, actually, because halfway through game 3 would be the second week 5.
Right, so
when you said it, you were still wrong.
So Astralis versus G2,
Yep.
that's what's coming up next. Astralis, they beat the undefeated yesterday, and
It seems like it's quite easy, though.
Yeah.
because it's just
but I think that Astralis showed a lot of great things, and now a lot of eyes are on Astralis. Can they keep this win streak going? We're going to find out as we do some boogieing on the dance floor.
Is that the chicken dance? Let's see what moves our teams bring out for us on the Rift. As you say, Astralis have had actually a really good last couple of games. Against Vitality, they had an early game lead, lost in a monumental team fight in the mid lane. And then, of course, yesterday they beat out Rogue with some very strong coordinated play. Now they are on the blue side, they're going to get rid of LeBlanc. Zeri immediately banned by G2.
Let's have a look. What else can they go for? The Caitlyn also going to be removed. Wonder if we'll see anything targeted towards Zanzarah. Will we see the typical Trundle bans? Maybe the Jarvan could be removed as well. Very common bans when playing against Astralis. But for now, it will just be some of the safe options. WhiteKnight, he has been... Well, he's not really known for his Jace, I would say. He's had actually quite a deep champion pool so far this split. But still showcasing some respect up towards the top side. Zanzarah's champion pool will be up available. I love that G2 is basically saying, you know what, we don't care about the Jhin, we don't care about the Ryze, you can pick whatever you want. We have strong answers to it, and typically we'll see the Ryze. Well, we now see the Jinx duo.
Zanzarah and Jinx. That's what we have seen quite a lot across the course of week 5. G2 taking a moment to think about their options. I will note as well, Targamas so far has played a unique champion in every single game this split. I wonder if he'll continue that trade. He would be...
Every single game.
He's reaching quite hard into his pool. Like things like the Thresh are up there in terms of he hasn't played it, but of course it's banned this game. After that, maybe Leona is a possible, but I don't think he's going to be looking at it.
The fact that he hasn't played Leona yet,
Yeah.
I think is kind of crazy. He could also go for something like a Braum. Well, we'll wait and see. Let's see how the draft plays out. The Jarvan is actually going to be picked here for Jankos. I think this is them saying, you know what? There's no point picking Jhin because he's going to pick Trundle, so let's not bother. Let's just take one of his other comfort engaged junglers in the form of Jarvan. And then, of course, again, we see the traditional and typical Trundle go for Zanzarah. The Troll King himself. The question is, how will Astralis round things out? Will they grab their AD carry here, or will they go for their top lane? Looks like they're going to secure themselves the Graves, which is a typical weak side top. So, okay, 50-50. Are we going to see another Yone into the Graves, yes or no?
I mean, BrokenBlade did bring it yesterday, and G2 won the game basically in 10 seconds in that matchup.
He did lose, though.
He did lose lane, but they won the game.
So
like,
do you think
I don't think it really matters when you can just say, okay, at 15 minutes we go in. Maybe it's the other brother. Yone
in the top lane. We know that that's very likely going to go for BrokenBlade based on what we saw yesterday. It seems that he likes it as an answer into the Graves because you will be able to scale later on into the game. Yone also has pretty decent team fighting. So we know that that's going to be a big threat. And already G2 going for a very similar composition to what we saw from them yesterday. Strong 5v5, strong late game. The question is, can they get there?
Of course, things like the Orianna team up very well with both the Jarvan and the Yone. So
very true. Good answer into the Ryze as well. That's a good ban call out.
I think Charlotte's probably going to ban it here. That would be my expectation. And we saw it work yesterday for Caps and for BrokenBlade, even though that Yone was behind in the laning phase. Just the combination of Fate Sealed into a Shockwave, basically undodgeable CC. Instead, Astralis say Syndra will be our initial ban. Of course, they do still have one more in this phase. G2 looking down towards Kobbe's champion pool. Aphelios and Xayah removed. So Jhin's still available for him. He has also brought out the Lucian and the Senna once, but everything else he's played has been banned away.
So just removing some of the comfort options there for Kobbe. All of the supports have been left up and available. To be fair, Targamas does seem to have an answer to all of them.
Yeah.
So regardless of what does get picked, I wouldn't be surprised to see Caps' mid laner locked in next. He does still, well, with the Orianna now banned, I think Astralis making some very smart bans there, limiting the options that Caps does have. He's someone that's also had a very flexible champion pool so far this split. He's played, the only champion he's played twice has been that Ryze, which obviously he's not going to be playing this game, but it looks like he's going to add another one to the Viktor count, as that's a pretty safe, pretty solid, good scaling mid laner. Will be losing out in terms of priority in the early laning phase, and this is something that G2 will have to respect, because Astralis, they have had very good early games so far this split. So let's see if we can see a strong roaming support now for promisq. I'd love to see something like his Leona or his Rakan, both of which I think he's had good early game performances on.
I really think Jhin Leona makes sense for me for this Astralis bottom lane, and then G2 pick the Braum into it because it works well both into the Leona engage.
Just so smart, Medic. So smart.
I didn't even look at it. I'm quite impressed, but I got those right.
No, I know. Yeah, you're very...
Braum here makes sense, because you stop the Ryze damage, you stop Leona, she can still engage, but you stop anyone else from doing any damage behind it, and you have great disengage with your ultimate, or even engage with your ultimate.
Short range comp. That's the problem. You have Graves, Trundle, Ryze. They have to get in range of you, and I think the champions like Braum do a great job of making your life harder. Beautiful prediction, Medic. Beautifully done. And also, Targamas.
Another new champ!
That's another new champ.
What is this, man? We're going to have Zed support next? It's just going to go through the whole list?
I did play against a Sylas support the other day.
Yeah, I actually have a friend who swears by it. Especially since you can buy Everfrost, it can be really strong.
Anyway, so let's have a look at the composition from G2. Very similar to what we saw yesterday. Of course, with the Set being replaced with the Braum, of course, the Orianna being replaced with the Viktor, and the Gwen being replaced with the Jarvan. The main difference is that the engage primarily comes from Jankos this time around rather than Targamas, but still strong, scaling, team fighting, you know, yada, 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 the simple expected. Astralis have a very strong top side. They also have early priority in mid thanks to Ryze's wave clear, so they can look to try and attack this Yone and this Viktor in the early game if they want to. They could also look to play around their bot lane, but basically Astralis need to gain control over the early game, and then they need to hold on to that control if they want to get a big win over G2.
And the way Astralis have done that in the last couple of games is through promisq roaming around the map. Say what you like about some of his performances in the start of the season, but he has been very strong over the last couple of games. We'll see if he can continue that form today up against G2. Let's get down and dirty as we make it onto Summoner's Rift for the fourth game of week two. Week 2?
Oh no. Oh no, Medic.
Small typo, I win.
No. So where are we? Are we week 2 or are we
it's the
on the first
week 2
5?
of the second week 5, Vedius, okay? That's where we are.
Guys, we speak for a living.
Oh, I was going to get you so good.
Right.
Anyway.
In terms of this early game, we see G2 looking to do a bit of an invade here. They don't have a sweeper at their disposal, so they will be spotted on this ward. Question mark pings are coming down from Astralis. But nothing really going to amount to anything. They're just going to drop that ward off, and then Targamas is going to replace his trinket for the sweeper. So let's have a look across the runes, see if there's anything too crazy going on. Everything looks pretty standard. You have the Glacial on the Leona. Medic, I know that you have strong opinions versus
It would be
Aftershock versus Glacial, but it seems like it's very situational dependent. You have a lot more flexibility to support these days.
I mean, part of the power of Glacial is the damage reduction you get out of it. Of course, the slow does help you as well, but 15% damage reduction from that target into anyone on your team helps you out a ton. Does make you squishier, because that damage reduction does not apply to yourself. So promisq quite squishy on this Leona, but he has been favoring the Glacial over the last couple of times. You've seen him on this pick, so no real surprise that he decided to pick that one.
terms of early itemization, nothing too crazy. If we could very quickly look at the mid lane matchup, as obviously both supports a bot lane. The thing about Viktor in the early laning phase is typically his wave clear is not the strongest. Usually you're waiting for more points in your E. But what he can do is trade very aggressively when you go for this corrupting pot start, especially when you pair that up with Aerie. And if you're looking to contest for prio against champions that do typically have a lot of push, something that many Victors will do is exactly what Caps is doing right now. Look at how he positions in the lane. He's basically going to leverage his cooldowns to just trade HP as much as possible. And because it gets a shield off the back of his Q, he can actually often up trade, and then you just basically spam through your corrupting pots to try and get this early push and then maybe look for a cheater recall. So I like how Caps is playing the lane right now, and something that we often see on Victors who you kind of typically expect to not have the strongest laning phase, but you definitely can if you're willing to get in the face and actually leverage those cooldowns and trade aggressively.
And of course, part of the power of having a Jarvan in the jungle is that level 2 gank. It's always something scary. EQ combo does a lot of work, and Jankos here has cleared his Gromp, his blue, his red, and he's looking for a level 3 towards the top side. But there's already movement from the rest of Astralis. WhiteKnight does have the flash, will get away, dodges the EQ, but falls to first blood. Zanzarah and Dajor not here in time to trade. Zanzarah takes a little bit of a bite out of Jankos, but he's still able to walk away.
G2 is on a bit of a timer there because Dajor did actually hit level 3 before Caps, was able to get a quick push off and then roam up. But this ward right here next to Dajor is what spotted out Zanzarah and Dajor actually pathing their way up towards the top side. WhiteKnight tried to get to his mid jungle, but didn't quite able, well, wasn't rather able to get away from the opposition. And G2 finds themselves with first blood.
Importantly, BrokenBlade did burn his flash. WhiteKnight burnt both of his summoners in the ensuing melee. And it's difficult now for WhiteKnight to play that lane too effectively. Of course, he does still have push, but he always has to be wary of Jankos on the gank, which is why we now see Zanzarah investing time on the top side, getting this vision in, forcing Jankos out of the top side jungle, because Zanzarah still hasn't cleared his blue or his wolves. He knows if he can keep Jankos away from this quadrant, he makes it so much safer for WhiteKnight on the top lane.
It certainly does. Jankos was worried about his Raptors being smited away there. Zanzarah didn't have his smite up. Jankos choosing not to burn it. BrokenBlade going for a bit of a trade. Just the dance back and forth. BrokenBlade lost that trade.
He does have TP though.
He
does have TP, so he can get back to this lane. I do want to talk a little bit about Astralis' early games, because although G2 have had a strong start in this early game, Astralis over the last 2 games, a small sample size I'd admit, have been very proactive on the map. They've been very good at getting towers. You can see 3.67 kills for every death at the 40-minute mark is incredibly active. Alongside that, a 2,000 gold lead for them in the last 2 games.
And I think a lot of that needs to go towards promisq. You can see him on your map right now, hovering around the mid lane. The man has had some pretty strong performances, and I know in the community he's a very contentious subject, but the man has been very integral in terms of their early game success, and you can just see from some of his stat lines, K+8 at 14, 3.5 on average. This man is constantly looking for plays, and we'll see him look for a play onto BrokenBlade.
And jungle proximity would put him in the highest in the league if it was across the course of the entire season. 4 members top here for Astralis. promisq going for the dive. BrokenBlade dead before he can get out. promisq will tank the tower, and the death ray finds its mark as Caps will answer with a kill of his own.
Ends up being 1-for-1, so the response from G2 is good. Targamas reads the map beautifully, makes his way up towards the top side, able to equalize the numbers out a little bit, and then Caps with the TP. The fact that he was able to force Dajor to burn it earlier meant that he had it available to answer this play up top side, and G2 for the time being stay ahead in kills.
And can you tell it's a Vedi cast? Because we're going to talk about supports as Targamas looks for Zanzarah, who will flash across this wall. But promisq very active for Astralis. Targamas exactly the same for G2. Look at that duo procs. That's how much time across this season he has spent near Flakked. He is lost. Flakked is left alone in the bottom lane, and Targamas is going all over the map to try and set his team up for these successful early game plays. And once again, it's just going to dive Dajor. Guardian here will get the shield. Dajor with a good flash. Phase Rush gets him away from any ensuing fight. BrokenBlade has the Fate Unbound, doesn't chase it up. FLICKR coming in. Zap goes wide. And Dajor, some fancy feet there, and a blast cone to boot will get him out. promisq's looking for a Zenith Blade, but it would be at a numbers disadvantage.
Wow, a lot to unpack there. So BrokenBlade actually passed towards mid, and they ended up making the swap happen so that BrokenBlade could still get some resources. But you talked about the supports, and I think it's really important, especially in this game, because Targamas is a player that I think many people had high expectations of, especially off the back of his KC performance last year. But he was a player formerly in the LEC, did not leave the impact that he wanted to, and after many years of trying to get back, he has really stood out. here in the LEC. And like, for me, he is actually one of the best performing supports that we've had so far in the league. The fact that he's played a different champion every game, and while some games have not been as strong as others, the fact that he has that flexibility and the ability to impact the game, I feel like in every game that he's in, it just showcases how strong of a support he is. And he fits into the G2 mold beautifully. That roaming support style is what Mickey was very well known for, and he seems to complement Jankos incredibly well.
That duo working very well in this early game so far. G2 about 1,300 gold ahead right now. A lot of that will be sitting in BrokenBlade's pockets with that kill up towards the top side. Of course, Caps as well, farming up a storm. 10 CS ahead of Dajor right now with the kill as well.
So have a look at what's happening on the minimap right now. I love this because this is something you can take advantage of in your solo queue games as well. If you end up dying top and you need to rotate through mid, you kind of hold the wave until the top laner goes back, and then you rotate back up towards the top, catch the wave that's being pushed in as the Viktor then comes to catch in the wave mid. And this is how you maximize as much farm as you can so that you don't lose too much. You're not sitting around waiting like, oh, my mid laner just pushed my top wave. What am I supposed to do here? Well, at least I can go mid, catch those waves, and then I can rotate when it makes sense to do so.
We especially see it with the early teleports. You know, Caps TPing up to the top lane, BrokenBlade was dead. He then has to work his way towards the mid lane, as you say. Astralis, though, not wanting to give up a dive opportunity. Curtain Call comes out. Guardian, though, onto Flakked. Is going to do quite a lot of work here. Dale's trying to rattle through with the damage. Flakked able to get away, gets excited, but it's still a double. Over to Astralis with a double to answer the heal. Just in time, Caps on the chase. Realm Warp will get Dajor out. Caps unable to find his opposite man.
And this is that early game aggression that we were talking about from Astralis. Great roams from Dajor. Exactly what you need to be doing on this Ryze. Leverage the fact that you have those windows to move around the map. Cap's not quite able to interrupt that. But the fact that he was able to find that window, get a big double kill down towards the bot side, is what Astralis need. Now, of course, they still don't find themselves with an early game gold lead. G2 across the board are doing very well in terms of the farm. But Astralis, this type of proactivity is exactly what we need to be seeing from them. And I think what's great about Astralis is, yes, they are our last place team, but in every single game, they consistently put up a fight. They will always look to challenge you in the early game. It's often in the mid game where they fall short. Let's see how they fare in this one.
Pillar coming out. Zanzarah looking for the trade. Damage here. BrokenBlade's going to go back. Fate Unsealed will come out. And look at the damage onto Zanzarah with the Cataclysm coming down. Jankos dunks him into the dirt, but it's a 1-for-1 trade.
Okay, for the record, Zanzarah was 2 levels below BrokenBlade. He was in a 2 versus 1, and he still ends up getting a kill. So the Trundle pick into these melees did exceptionally well, being able to steal that AD, the ultimate offering so much value. Props to Zanzarah, but this could very well mean a Rift Herald going in the favor of G2, but Astralis looking to challenge still.
Dajor, no Realm Warp, no TP. WhiteKnight just stepping forward, looking for that eye. It will open up, and Jankos secures it with the smite. Will get the Rift Herald, tries to EQ out, will manage to get the flash. Dajor on his way, though, and the chase is on. Targamas flashes away as well. 2 flashes expended by G2 to escape.
Okay, so G2 punished the fact that Zanzarah gave his life over. There was no smite available, and they will be able to secure that first Rift Herald, which, for these teams that are leveraging the early game power of things like a Ryze, a pushing lane in the form of Graves, being able to get that Rift Herald is really valuable. It opens up the map a lot more. It funnels that gold into your carries and gives you so much more control over the side lane. So the fact that G2 was able to deny that, you can see it was a bit of a risky play, but I think it was worth it overall for G2.
As we have a moment, can I just ask observers, can we just look at Zanzarah's skills for a second here? Because Zanzarah's been pretty vocal. Okay, it is. It's W max on Trundle. Now, some people might be like, why do you do this? Why do you not max Q? That's your damage spell. W max gives you bonus attack speed. Every level in it increases that by 20%. So you start at 30% bonus attack speed. At level 5, it's 110% bonus attack speed. If you are looking for these trades, it does so much work for you as 3 shots land, but the 4th goes wide from Kobbe in the bottom lane. Trundle, he is eating pretty tonight with that solo kill on the top side. And if there's any Trundle solo queue players at home who'd be maxing Q, please, for the life of you, switch to maxing W. It's so strong.
Zanzarah is a big W max stand for sure. We see WhiteKnight now rotating from top down into mid. He does have the TP up, but with the Drake alive, he's saying, hey, can we look to contest this? Zanzarah's just reset off the back of the map. They do have Prio on bot lane. The Jinx is coming back down towards the bot wave. BrokenBlade does have the TP, but it's not unleashed just yet. G2 will maintain control over the river for the time being. But here we are, Dajor.
promisq going in, look at the solar flare, look at the damage! Jankos just jumped! Pillar goes out as well, TP's gonna join the fight as BrokenBlade may look to join this fray. Targamas gets to the blast cone, doesn't use it yet, and the turnaround Fate sealed for Zanzarah, 1-for-1 trade in the bottom side river.
So the initial engage looked really good for Astralis, but that gravity well from Caps specifically bought enough time for BrokenBlade to join the fray and end up trading back 1-for-1. So with no junglers on the map, that means that no Drake will end up going down, but I think that G2 still, in terms of health and mana, is in a much better position. And the fact that Jankos is going to be back out onto the map a little bit earlier means that G2 will likely be in a better position to contest for this Drake. Now, look at this flash engage from promisq. Locks up Targamas, fully CCs Jankos. He doesn't get room to move, but you can see how impactful this gravity field is in terms of the fact that it stuns Astralis up and then they overcommit. Kobbe thinks he can come in for the follow-up, but then BrokenBlade with the ultimate is able to lock down Zanzarah and they end up trading.
You can see once again the support's being very involved in this game so far. Riftail charges in here, Caps. It's 160 gold in his back pocket, looking to make it more as Dajor tries to cull this wave, but he's 20 CS behind and about 400 gold behind to boot. It's a difficult position for him to be in, and although BrokenBlade struggled yesterday in this exact same matchup, the early attention from Jankos means that he is 1,400 gold ahead now on this Yone, Betty.
Oh, BrokenBlade is having a very solid game. I do want to give credit to Caps because I think at the beginning of the split, he was somebody that... He's a name that I think for a long time has been someone that everyone feared, right? But as more mid laners have come into the league, I mean, Humanoid was considered the best mid last split. Even at the beginning of this split, it was Humanoid that was often talked about. But I have to hold that point as promisq is looking for an engage.
X-Flash, Solar Flare. Ooh, didn't use it. Instead went for the Zenith Blade first. Solar Flare actually may just have been coming off cooldown. And wasn't quite able to find that connection. Would have been a level advantage for the Astralis bottom lane with Zanzarah coming in as well.
But the point I just wanted to make is that I feel like Caps over the last 2 weeks or so seems to definitely be on form in terms of his performance. At the start of the split, I feel like he wasn't that same terrifying Caps that we typically see. But over the weeks, I feel like that his progression has been very rapid. And every single game, I feel like he's always got himself like a 20 or 30 CS lead. So huge props to him. I think he's been really impactful in G2.
promisq, Zenith Blade just wide. There's the pillar. Solar Flare flashed away. Flakked able to escape. Deadly Flourish will find its mark, but G2 able to control this bottom side river and the Dragon Pit alongside it. They will get the first Drake of the game at the 14-minute mark. A very late soul in this one, if we do even get to that point.
Dajor pathing up towards top. Doesn't have the ultimate, but he could be looking for a pick on a BrokenBlade regardless. Looks like that he reads that, and he's just going to disengage. So Dajor not really going to get anything off the back of this BrokenBlade, though. Ooh, he fakes it out. He's hovering. He's pretending that he's backed. The fog of war. I think at this point he could actually kill WhiteKnight.
Yep.
So WhiteKnight is not going to run the risk.
Power of Shield Bow as well. Even though it was slightly nerfed in Yone and Yasuo got compensatory buffs. Still a very strong item, especially when you're trying to dive into the enemy team. And Yone just has more auto attacks than Graves in prolonged trades. Eclipse procced there by WhiteKnight, and we'll just be able to clear out this wave. We enter the next stage of the game. You can see teams will be vying for vision control, especially with this Herald up in about a minute's time. Zanzarah, Dajor, and promisq all trying to gain control of this bottom side jungle. Now, they don't have any deep vision yet. The control ward does come out. Jankos going to have to EQ away from this and uses the blast cone as well. That's one avenue where he cannot approach the pit anymore.
Zanzarah running the Trinity Force Trundle to really maximize his damage and his dueling prowess. 4-2-1, so he has the money for it, of course.
Trinity Force changed slightly on 12-3. They reduced the extra attack damage you get off the stacks, but gave it a little bit of health as a sort of a compensation. So we'll see how powerful he is able to be. With it being base attack damage, I wonder if it's going to be a Sterak's second, because that works off your base attack damage. But of course, you want health with Sterak's for the shield, so it's maybe Sterak's third with something a little bit healthy in the middle. Maybe even a Death's Dance.
Yeah, we should mention this, because like... Sterak's was changed for everyone at home. You shouldn't really build it second anymore. It's not that good. It's much better when you have more bonus HP.
Yeah. The shield scales are bonus health.
Yes. Now, the TP comes through. G2 currently starting off the Rift Herald. Ooh, BrokenBlade
with a nice little dodge across the wall. That Herald might reset here. BrokenBlade locked up. Oh, he doesn't get away. Zanzarah takes the kill. Jankos secures the Herald, but he's going to pay for it with his life. Cataclysm only leaps him into the arms of Zanzarah. 6-2, the Troll King has arrived.
So initially, that play looked pretty good from BrokenBlade, but then you quickly realized, hang on, I'm already over the wall, which means my E is not going to pull me back. He then gets Everfrosted into Rooted by Dajor, and Zanzarah is like, okay, yeah, sure, I'll take this. Quickly picks up a kill. Now, credit to Jankos, is able to secure himself the Herald, uses his ultimate to make sure he gets on top, and actually make sure that G2 can actually secure that one. Let's have a look here. So he uses his Q to get over the wall, then he can't stack his Q again because he's permanently rooted. Has to use his ultimate to get away, but the ulti from Zanzarah locks that one down. Then you can see promisq CC here onto Jankos, uses the ult to make sure that he can secure that Herald, and they end up getting themselves 2 kills. Astralis at this point in the game definitely is very strong, even if they find themselves at a slight gold deficit. G2 need to keep the game going at a nice slow pace. The fact that they've been able to secure all their heralds has been great for them because they haven't lost any of their outer towers. The fact that they have the first Drake means that they don't actually have to contest for the next one. G2 have done pretty much everything that they needed to in order to slow Astralis down as much as possible.
Yeah, they got about 1,000 gold lead as well with that Rift Herald. They can break open one of these towers. Have already, of course, taken that mid lane, puts Dajor in a bit of a precarious situation as he has to push forward to catch these waves. I'm looking at Zanzarah's build. I wonder if it's going to be Warmogs into Sterak's. It's an option, of course. Anathema's Chains, also a possibility. You pop that on a Viktor, you are only taking physical damage from the rest of this team, and will make you quite tanky in the ensuing fights. Of course, giving all that extra health means Sterak's third would be a possibility. But we're kind of learning these builds as we go. I looked at Lolalytics. No Trundle's really building Triforce first, apart from Zanzarah, so...
Well, he is the Troll King.
Yeah,
you know?
we'll see where he decides to go.
Trust in Zanzarah. It might just be one of those things where he says, guys, I'm really fed. Yeah. I'm just going to carry. And again, he is into a Yone, which I think, like... Yeah, Yone does not like playing against Trundle. Targamas could be in some danger here. Oh, the Deadly First going to land the root. Unbreakable comes down, but the Solar Flare will stun Targamas up. Pops the stopwatch. Now the chase is on. Zanzarah looking for his 7th. Couldn't quite get there in time. Didn't pop the Subjugate either. That would have ticked Targamas down, you have to feel. Looks like G2 will be able to escape with their support intact. They secure the top tower as well. Yone working towards the bottom one. Just a streamline of control wards littered through the river for G2. They have good information as to what is going on the map, and every time Astralis try to make something happen, it feels like that they're always losing something else on the map. G2 doing a great job of playing patiently, playing towards their win conditions, and knowing that as long as they don't give Astralis too much in the early game, then they're going to be able to outscale later on. And although the scoreline is in Astralis' favor in terms of kills, towers, dragons, gold, all favor G2. 2,000 gold ahead. This will be their 2nd dragon of the game as well. BrokenBlade is mighty strong on this Yone. With the Immortal Shield Bow already complete that Zeal. He's looking for another tower. And WhiteKnight, you can chip away at him. Maybe you've got a slight level advantage, but BrokenBlade very happy just to take turret damage in exchange for his health pool. As we see the 2nd dragon secured. G2 in a good position, although it feels like Astralis have been at the forefront of the action so far. So with that objective down, we enter a bit of a slower phase because now both teams are going to be looking to try and secure these remaining outer towers. It's going to be a lot of trading. G2 have found promisq, but they're not going to commit onto that one. They're just creating space for the Yone to work in a side lane. They're looking to get some deeper vision towards the bot side of the map. Astralis are actually contesting this vision and making it harder. Engage now from promisq. Now Targamas doesn't have flash, and they know that. Jankos has EQ, he will flash across the wall. Targamas chases him actually. Smart play there by G2. BrokenBlade stepping forward here. The Rift Herald will this get a charging? Because you got Smite, you got Jump, you got a lot of damage, but you couldn't quite take it out in time. Zanzarah smites afterwards, but the turret is already down. So the reason why I was making those weird sound effects was mainly because Zanzarah worked very nicely with promisq there in terms of the stun into the pillar. We saw a Trundle, I think, was it the game yesterday where... It locked Azeri against the wall. Cap splashing forward, the curtain's open. One shot hits, that's the slow that Kobbe needed. 1-for-1 traded on the top side. But a solo kill goes in favor of Caps. He is feeling it today. He wanted to assert his dominance in the 1v1 matchup and show, hey, you know, I know that Ryze typically does well in the side lane, but how do you feel if I acquire a solo kill? And he did just that. Do you think that's his exact... That's exactly what he thought. That's how his brain works? He said, hey, you might be good in the side lane, but how about I solo kill you? And now get me some orange juice. This is the point at which he says, I'm going to solo kill you. Note that he waits for the phase rush to proc, the burn, then applies the area once again. He gets rooted up, and then he's like, well, you know what? My full combo rotation is back up again. I can solo kill you. Good awareness here from Kobbe to
From
be able to...
behind the bushes as well. Both camouflaged and accurate.
That's camouflage. Nicely done there. 1-for-1 trades. But now Caps has basically said, hey, Dajor, want to come side lane again?
Yeah. They're all with no flash now as well. Makes it very difficult for him.
Dajor only has 49 magic resistance, by the way. For those that don't know, Shadow Flame offers magic penetration at certain health thresholds. Does mean that it's quite good against champions that don't have a huge amount of magic resistance.
It also means, oh, it's current health, isn't it? It's not max health. Okay. Because
Yeah.
if it was max health, building Fimbulwinter into it might have been a little bit of a mistake, but it's
If it was max health, whew, that item would be...
broken.
Woo.
But current health damage from that Shadow Flame, scaling as the champion loses some of
But
their HP.
we talked a lot about scaling. That is 2 items done on the Jinx, that is 2 items done on Caps, and that is 2 items done on BrokenBlade. And this is usually the threshold at which Astralis' comp struggles. And yes, G2 can now threaten a Baron.
So WhiteKnight has TP. Do Astralis even have any semblance of a clue that this is happening? They didn't have wards in the river. And with BrokenBlade being at 2 items, with Flakked being Jinx, and with Caps being Viktor, it's a very easy cleanup there for G2. Baron secured under the noses of Astralis.
Very cleanly done from G2. They've done such a great job this game of maintaining vision control pretty consistently throughout the river, and that caught Astralis off guard. They were not expecting that Baron to go down as quickly as it did. But G2 very quickly into the game secure that big major objective, as they have done with so far every Drake and every Herald.
And when you have 2 solo laners who are winning their 1v1 matchups in the side lanes, Baron only exemplifies that, only exacerbates the problem for Astralis. BrokenBlade very strong, 2.5 items complete. Caps, we've just seen him 1v1 Dajor and win out. And now it's going to be very difficult for Astralis to play the map against these 2 strong picks.
I don't know how I feel about Umbral hang on. BrokenBlade getting collapsed on.
promisq Hex Flash. He's looking for the chase here. Zenith Blade just wide. BrokenBlade's going to get booted and pulled back and stunned up, and promisq would take the kill. Targamas now in a world of trouble as Dajor's on the chase, has the Realm Warp. Will they go further? Solar Pledge just a little bit short. And they won't be able to chase any further. Astralis are able to find a pick on one of those powerful side lane picks.
Yes, that's a pretty big pick. It will slow G2 down a little bit, but remember that the longer this game goes, the easier it's going to be for G2. Astralis, they're just kind of looking for any pick that they can find at this point. Once again, they're sitting in this bush looking for an opportunity. Zanzarah, does he see something?
Kind of just looking to clear out this cannon minion if they can. Of course, cannons outrange towers when they have the Baron buff on, which is why G2 continue just to guard that with their lives. Zanzarah stepping forward. Pillar of Ice goes down. Jankos EQs to Caps, but the wave has been culled, has been cleared, and Astralis hold on to their mid-tier 2. Still, 2,000 gold between these 2 teams, but the longer the game goes on, the less that gold difference matters, and the more G2 continue to scale. Of course, there is still scaling on Astralis' side. You know, Dajor, Ryze can do a lot of work in a late-game fight, but you don't have the backup of an AD carry that hyperscales. You don't have the backup of a top laner that scales as well as Yone.
Well, the other big problem is the range, my man.
Yep.
How do you close the gap against a Viktor, a Jinx, and a Braum? They just create so much zone control. WhiteKnight gets knocked up.
Well, BrokenBlade just jumped into that. Didn't know WhiteKnight was there. At least it was blind with the jump. And now, but on the other side, Jankos caught out. If they can kill the jungler, perhaps they still have a chance. Jankos dives in with the Cataclysm, and Zanzarah is the jungler that falls. Astralis now all hail the retreaters. Caps caught out by Dajor just a little bit, but this will be the 3rd dragon of the game. Over to G2.
Wow, G2 immediately punish Astralis, and they
Jankos?
might be looking for more. The Baron buff is about to wear off. They don't have any minion waves to work with, but they will settle for a couple kills and their 3rd Drake of the game. Jankos with some cool Jarvan finesse there, getting the double knockup. Knowing that once you get a couple more points in that E, it does last a little bit longer. You can leverage the double knockup, and G2 is literally taking everything. They're stealing away Astralis' camps. They know the Baron is worn off, but with those death timers still up for Astralis, they can secure these towers, and they say, you know what, even if we reset a little bit late, what is Astralis going to be able to do about that? Caps pushes in all the way bot lane as well.
Okay. I'm trying to work out what promisq was doing.
I think he was just...
Was he just
that
worried
ward.
that someone would
That ward is what I think his plan was, but we'll get to that in a second. So BrokenBlade, he must have seen this somehow.
Sweeper, is he on sweeper? Yeah.
Well, in either way, he knew that he was there, and he's able to get a solo kill. He has quite rightfully outscaled. Then you see, look at this, the EQ coming out from Jankos. Doesn't actually need the 2nd flag up. He's just able to get that knock up. The Trundle basically perma-CC'd, means that he cannot move, and it means that G2 is able to come out on top of the fight.
BrokenBlade does have sweeper, so I think that's how he spotted WhiteKnight in that bush. Now that ward will spot Caps, and you can see promisq and Zanzarah were thinking, if someone comes to catch this wave by themselves, maybe we can be the ones making the catch. But all of G2 worked their way up towards that top side. This ward hasn't been walked on by Astralis.
I think it's not actually in the brush, by the way.
I think it is, as Dajor was spotted by it there. But the thing is, only Dajor was spotted by that. Now, do G2 invest 3 players into killing only Dajor? Because if they do, this is a good play. Jankos going to jump over. promisq and Zanzarah are waiting, but they don't click the blast cone in time, so Jankos might be able to jump out of this one. Cataclysm coming out. promisq takes the kill. Gets the kill on Jankos. promisq, though, will fall as Flakked opens up. Curtain's call coming out. 1-for-1, 1-for-2 trade now in favor of G2. WhiteKnight trying to do what he can. Kobbe needs to get into the midst of this, but Caps keeps him at arm's length, keeps him at bay. Dajor in. Blast cone back. Dajor does not have the damage on this Ryze. Kobbe will get 1 in response. Flashes away. But BrokenBlade, Caps, and Targamas able to get out alive.
And G2 once again come out on top in the fight. Jankos, he didn't know, okay? All of chat was Pepe laughing because he just didn't know. But BrokenBlade, he's not done yet.
Yeah, BrokenBlade should be able to chase Kobbe down. This is an AD carry's nightmare. Stuck between a Yone and a hard place, and Targamas takes the kill in the end. That's one for all supports out there. Something we've seen many times is support solo killing an AD carry. This time, a little help.
So here we are. Astralis. They're setting up for a bit of a pick. This is quite early on. We need to zoom all the way through this one.
All 3 of them.
Yeah, they will get information. And then this ward does not spot them out. So Jankos is thinking, hey, I'm going to get into this bush so I can look for a pick onto Dajor. But he is not expecting these two to be here. He goes over the wall. He's like, whoa, 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 whoa. Gets perma-CC'd. Then Targamas goes over the wall to buy a little bit more time, and then the TP starts to come through. Flakked and Caps are in a great position at this point because they can just lay down the damage without any real threat. And this is where you see the strong scaling of their composition as well. Astralis is kind of funneled in one at a time. Meanwhile, G2 have their group together as they now look for another pick.
Zanzarah immediately Cataclysmed here. Doesn't have the flash, and Caps is waiting for the kill. Super Mega Death Rocket will find it. And G2 take down the only fed member of the enemy team. They're looking hungrily at this mid lane. I will say, I noticed in that last fight, if Cataclysm goes down and WhiteKnight's on the outside, he can't do damage. He can't reach anyone on the inside. There's terrain in the way. End of the line stops on the wall. He just walks around, orders a ward. Doesn't really manage to do anything. And this 3-item grave is very much neutralized by that Cataclysm in the fight. G2 now looking for their second Baron of the game. Bounties available for Astralis. Maybe they'll look towards the mid lane. That tower stands precariously, but G2 actually look for a flank of their own here, Vedi.
Overall, a very clean game is what we've been seeing from G2. As they look for more kills.
Glacial Fissure just shot. promisq can blast cone. And that should be that, as Targamas can't chase him down.
But yeah, from beginning to end, G2 have controlled all of the objectives. G2 have found really good engages, and while they have fallen short in terms of a couple picks here and there, Astralis did lead in terms of kills. G2 have just played the map much better, and they've been able to get to this point now where it's very difficult for Astralis to be able to win out on the 5v5. So I feel like it's a matter of time before G2 close things out, unless Astralis can find some sort of crazy miracle play.
And Zanzarah might be the player to do that off the back of Caps, though. We'll spot this out. promisq goes in, and promisq is going to go down pretty quickly. Not really much follow-up from the rest of Astralis. And how do you follow someone over a wall like that? WhiteKnight tries to do what he can here, but Dajor locked up, rooted in place. Caps takes the second kill of the battle. G2 now barreling down towards the Nexus.
I know a lot of people are going to think that that looks really int, but Astralis is in a position where they have to try something. And if they don't do anything, they're just going to lose. So promisq saw an opportunity. He tried to make a play happen. The rest of Astralis couldn't follow up. And now G2 will find themselves knocking on the Nexus towers.
And looking for that second place all by themselves, at least until the last game of the day. 8-3 for this G2 lineup. Replacing Reckless, bringing in Flakked, bringing in Targamas, replacing Mickey, placing Wonder in the top lane. I think a lot of people thought it would be more rebuilding than rebirth for G2, but so far, at least in the regular season, they are looking on top form. They will take down Astralis, clean them up in their base. Only WhiteKnight survives, but Flakked's having none of that. Final rocket to the base as Astralis' winning spree is cut very short by G2, and they aim for second place in the LEC. Dajor left alive on the fountain. Minions aren't even doing the job here for G2, so instead they will do it themselves. Nexus falls, G2 take the win.
What's the victory here? Or just hugs. I saw Caps was so animated, you know? He was like...
It was like hugs for everyone but Targamas is just like this left alone.
Targamas is focused. He's controlled. Life for support. Constant diligence.
It was a tough game for him as well. Didn't quite have as much impact as he usually would, but he did his job well. Acted as that bouncer for his team.
The whole game plan for G2 was just sit back and scale. You know, they could just sit back, take their time, and now that means that you at home get to vote for your key player of the game.
Oh, it's Flakked. Okay.
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 Focus.
Okay.
Focus. Look at that footwork. Oh, he's on the player of the game as well. He's an option.
Flakked, Caps, and Targamas at LEC on Twitter are your options.
You have to go to Twitter to vote, though, at LEC. Make sure you throw them a follow. Their memes.
I always game in socks, I'll say. Even if I'm not wearing shoes, I have socks on when
That's
I game.
true. I am a socks gamer.
Yeah. There's something comfy about having socks
It's
on.
true. Are you slippers, gang?
I'm slippers, but my problem is my slippers at the moment have a bit of a heel on them, and so sometimes I fall off my slippers. It's a weird story. Anyway, soon we'll hear from BrokenBlade after the break before Targamas will join the Analyst desk for picks and bans for the match of the week between Fnatic and Vitality. You don't want to miss it.
Do you have, like, heels on your slippers?
They're like thick.
I really feel like we haven't reached even 50% of our potential yet.
0-3 first week, it sucks, but it's also like, it is what it is, it doesn't really matter. We just learn from it and we improve and we work hard.
Both of these teams were heralded as Europe's next big super team. Let's see who will live up to that moniker.